Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show, and we are on part two. We've done a wee mini series of happiness and prosperity. So we've got that. It's in three parts. So this is part two, and today we are going to look at what is the definition of a happy, prosperous person. And I think we're going to delve deeper into it as we go through. And I think we're going to break down the 8 characteristics that happy and prosperous people have in common, and look at them individually and have a wee chat about them, and we could relate them to our own experiences and indeed your journey as well, Jim. So, but
But if
let's.
anybody knows what the definition of happiness and prosperity is, then tell me. Because I'm still trying to work out.
It's funny because when you go through this today, and it does say about, obviously we pick up on like successful people and are generally happy, prosperous people. Do you know they're always in that really happy place because they're doing what they enjoy, and it isn't always like that, because obviously, I mean, not every day you can walk about with a smile on your face. That would be quite a challenge to do that, I think.
I've yet to find somebody that's
going.
I've yet to find somebody that's going to fit this criteria when we go through it. Because I tell you what, I could point to Bezos, I could point to Branson, I could point to Alan Sugar, I could point to all the greats, Elon Musk, people like that. I could point to everybody you think's happy and successful, and it's like a lot of this stuff won't apply to them, because they're quietly content, I think.
Yeah.
And also they're comfortable being uncomfortable, and they're comfortable being unhappy in some state of mind, because you can't be happy all the time. It's not entirely possible. If you were happy every single time, you'd be releasing all the wrong endorphins. Every single time you'd be releasing them, you'd effectively burn yourself out being happy.
Because you're running at a different level when you're happy. So you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that all the time.
But for people that are struggling right now, this is probably the key to finding out where a bit of happiness can happen as a result of where you are, or even a bit of contentness overall. I think that's the key measure here. Happy contentness and prosperity as a result. Prosperity usually typically follows as no, it doesn't. Prosperity, then you become happy. See, prosperity was for me, and then I became happy. Because it's like I no longer need to answer to anybody else. So therefore, it was maybe a lot to do with getting what I wanted in the first place in order to, and then when I got that, I realized that I would be happy as a result of that. Now, this wasn't material possessions. This was, I'm answerable to no one. Except to Lee, my wife. Except to Lee, my wife.
Yeah,
that's probably it, really. It's like I'll have to qualify that by saying, well, I maybe said that statement, but it'll no be that later on if she finds out or is watching this. But it's the key here. So there's a definition to happiness. There's a definition to a happy, prosperous person. And you're going to talk about that, about what Forbes magazine said. This is quite interesting because remember, Forbes magazine's all about wealth and money. That's how Forbes kind of define things, because that is their tagline: the prosperous and wealth, and I've got fast cars and I've got fancy boats and I've got great houses and I'm really prosperous because I've got a fantastic company. And it looks the part, but is it the part? What is it somebody once said about, if it walks like a dog and barks like a dog, it's a dog. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's nothing else other than that. So the key here is you've got to kind of take that same analogy into everything that you see in other people, because a lot of people can suck you in based on what you think they've got, or what you perceive it they've got, or what they give out that impression they've got. But the key is to actually look behind that veil. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy turns up and Toto pulls back the curtain, and the Wizard of Oz is just messing about and pulling levers, and all these different things and pressing buttons and having this big thing going, I am the Wizard of Oz, I am the all-encompassing Wizard of Oz. And that's kind of what you've got to watch out for, I would say, when we're getting into that sort of scenario about what you see other people. I'm never, I'll be honest, we're on Instagram. I am not a big fan of Instagram. Instagram is just all about impressing people with things that you've got to impress people you probably don't even like. And it's like, really, to get likes and dopamine hits. That's kind of how I look at Instagram. So apologies to anybody that just solely focuses on Instagram, but that's kind of how I see the world. I'm quite a black or white person. I'm like, I'll just say it how it is. And if you don't want to listen to it, don't listen to it. Well, it's only my opinion. What do I know? What do I know?
I mean, you're right, and I would tend to agree with you. Like Instagram as a platform, it's more images of material things, and that's got that definitely that kind of setup. But yeah, we're going to talk about just initially about Forbes magazine. We touched on it last week. We spoke about because they've done the rich list or whatever, and Taylor Swift's in that now because she's got all this money coming from her tour, and as a business woman and things as well. But Forbes magazine, I mean, a wealthy person, according to them, is somebody who has an annual income of at least $1 million. Now, do you think about that as income? Now, $1 million, whether it's dollars or pounds or whatever, in a year, is quite a lot.
I would like to increase my wealth by $1 million every year. I think I actually do. I think I actually do. But I would certainly not want to earn $1 million, £1 million pounds, $1 million, million, whatever it is a year, or €1 million a year, because I know I'll be taxed heavily on that, and literally about 40% of that will disappear. So literally, I'm going to earn $1 million, and I'm going to be left with about 500,000. I don't like that idea. I like the very fact that I've got wealth and it's built and it's not taxable, and therefore it's only taxable when you realize it, but you can actually borrow against it and actually use it to create more and more income.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. And I think to have earnings of $1 million in a year is definitely quite a lot. And I would probably then, personally, I mean, that's my opinion, but I would class maybe somebody with that kind of earnings as maybe super wealthy, as opposed to just a wealthy person. But then, I'm just obviously relaying what Forbes' definition is.
Someone posted on TikTok, actually. Someone posted on TikTok at the weekend, top 1% in Britain, according to them, is somebody that's got wealth of 3.6 million, in other words, wealth, and they earn 160,000 a year. And that apparently to them is the top 1%.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to go on to talk about as a mixture of asset and income. Now, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Robert Kiyosaki, now we reference him quite a lot, and he defines rich as having 10 million in assets. So that could be property, it could be anything, and then having that million annual income as well. And needless to say, they're two very different goals to reach, to have all that in asset and have that in income. There is people that are in that situation. But that's what he defines as somebody as being rich, and that's a mixture of assets and income. I think obviously the definition of happy, prosperous person probably follows maybe the assets at maybe $1 million, and then maybe an annual income, say maybe about 300,000 or something. Just like that's more realistic, and it's more what you just kind of said there, Jim. It's in that kind of level.
I think for most people, let's just get real. Happy and prosperous person is somebody that's earning £50,000 a year. For most people that'll be watching this, it's just like I just want to make it. And if I was making six figures, it was like I'll be over the moon at 100,000 a year. It's but again, as I come back to saying, it's for. I think happy and prosperity is more linked to wealth rather than actually income. I think wealth's a lot more to do with it. Wealth that generates income. I think that's the key.
Which, as we always refer back to, because it's what we do, as property is just such the best machine to do that. So then the question is it possible to identify a happy, prosperous person? Now, there will probably be quite a few people around you in your life just now doing what they really want to do. And they have plenty of income from their businesses or other investments, and they do what they like, when they like, and enjoy life to the fullest that they can. And that, well, Jim, I mean, you've spent a lot of years getting to where you are, and you do work, but you still do what you want to do when you want to do. You enjoy what you do. You make time for doing things like you do a lot of training, and you were at was it the triathlon you done on Sunday?
Triathlon yesterday, yeah. So triathlon managed to do that, but it's quite interesting because you can turn away anybody you want. So, and that's what I predominantly do. If I don't want to do business with anybody, I just went, nah. After they don't realize that I'm going around to interview them as well as them interviewing me. And it's
Yeah.
like, if I don't want to do business with them, I'll just put them off. I'll just tell them straight. It's like, no, I don't think I'm for you. I don't think what I do is for you either, in some shape or form. So I'll just say no now. It's like I've got
Yeah.
past the point of actually. I mean, I wouldn't say caring, because I do care, but I've got past the point of actually arguing with somebody over whether it's 0.75, 1%, 1.25, 1.5. I know what I've got to do the job, and I know what I need to do the job. If you don't want to pay that, then go and buy from someone else.
Yeah. And it's true what you say. Although you try your hardest to explain to them how you work and what your model is, sometimes it just doesn't translate, and sometimes you don't align with certain people, and that's fine. And they'll find what they need elsewhere, and that's fine as well. And the beauty of that is you've got the freedom to pick and choose like that. Whereas some people maybe running a business and things and doing what they do, they have to they can't let any business go because they need it all. So it's a different kind of
Well,
game.
here's the key for anybody that's running a business right now, or they're thinking about running a business, or they're in sales. The first thing you should be asking a customer straight away is, okay, if you've got other people coming out, what are you using as a criteria to define who is the best to do the job that you want them to do? And that's when it'll open a can of worms for someone, because quite a lot of people, well, we say quite a lot of people, especially in a state agency, for example, go on fee. But
Yeah.
did you know it was actually only 10%?
Really?
Yeah, it was benchmarked. It's more 10%. The biggest one is trust. Whether they can trust someone
Yeah.
to do the job, whether they can trust that person to look after them, whether they can trust that person to do the right thing for them, even though it's not right for the actual person themselves. That's what the biggest criteria is out of all of this: trust. And it's the same with any relationship you have, with any business you've got. The key, if you're running a small business or a big business, you should be asking someone, so what benchmark are you actually using to define the criteria for who you're going to choose? And if
Yeah.
as soon as you hear how much it's going to cost me, it's maybe not the right person to be doing business with
Yeah.
straight away.
Do you know what I'm thinking that was like, I was surprised there when you say that, because fee objection and things is obviously something that people in what we do come up quite often. But then I think as well, if you could translate and communicate to somebody that you are the right person, you know what you're doing, and have them completely entrusted in you, the price is never really going to matter.
Yeah, and it's the key here is, because you know they're probably going to deliver a better result, or you're going to get a better product, or you're going to get a better service. And for some people like me, it's like it's now come down to the fact that the service and the no having to go over it again is the most important criteria, for me anyway. I
Yeah.
don't want my time wasted.
Yeah, definitely, because time's the most important thing. And I think when you do a lot of back and forward, time could be wasted, and really you could move on to something, and they could then move on to something else as well. But yeah, let's get back to the definition of happy and prosperous. And I says we're going to break it down today, and we're going to look at the 8 different characteristics that happy and prosperous people generally have in common. And number 1 is doing what you love. And I mean, I'll not say every single happy person, but happy people and successful people that generally that you meet have one thing in common, and they're full of joy, and they enjoy what they're doing. You can feel it as soon as you meet them. And this is where I was thinking, well, is it really always like that? But anyway, so that's up for debate, I suppose, if people think that that's true or not. But it's hard to put into words where there's always an atmosphere of real excitement around people that are happy and successful and quite prosperous. Of course, there is that kind of feeling around them because they're doing exactly what they love doing. And the more you talk to this kind of person, the more their excitement spreads to you, and it can be quite infectious. Do you know, you could pick up on those vibes with people that are in the right state of mind and in the right zone. And that's where it comes down to, we talk about surrounding yourself with people, like-minded people, or more successful people in your field, because you will definitely feed from that, and it will come through in you as well. So yeah, and this type of person, well, their philosophy is quite simple: it's do what you love, and as we've just demonstrated, as you say, Jim, for your own experiences, things as well, the more things that you do that you don't like doing, the less you'll enjoy what you're doing in life.
I think I'm not really sure if I agree with that at all about doing what you love. And the reason I say that is, newsflash, when you're starting out for the first time, you have
It's
no
not,
idea what you love.
yeah,
And you've just got to go. You just got to get used to the grind. You've got to get used to doing what you're needing to be doing
yeah,
in order to generate income. There's so many young people nowadays going out there and getting told this story from Gary Vee and people like that. Oh,
yeah,
do what you love and learn to monetize it. And I've said it a couple of times in the
mhm,
past as well. But sometimes you just got to do what it takes rather
yeah,
than do what you love, because and doing what you love is like, well, I maybe don't want to do it tonight because I just don't fancy doing it. That's the impression it gets.
yeah,
But it might be the case that you've got to just do it and get on with it, regardless of the odds, and regardless of the time that you've got to have involved, regardless of the grind that you've got to do, regardless of the state of mind you're in right now or the health you're in as well. You just
yeah,
might have to get yourself out of your bed and actually just get on and do it. And I've done that time and time again in
yeah,
the past. It's like the point of doing what you love is eventually you find out what you love, and you usually find that most people start are very successful later on in their life, because that's what happens to most people. Yeah, I'll give you a classic example of that. Colonel Saunders, KFC, 65 years old, he started KFC after he'd finally retired and got $100 paycheck for every single month for his retirement. And it was
mhm,
like, I can't live on this. This is crazy. And he felt really annoyed and so frustrated. He thought, I'm going to sell my grandmother's recipe. Nobody wanted to buy it. Went round thousands of people to try and license this recipe for fried chicken, and no one wanted to do it. He went, oh, to hell with it, I'm just going to do it myself. Ray Kroc, classic
yeah,
example as well, multi-mixer salesman and he came across the McDonald's brothers, and the McDonald's brothers, he asked them, I tell you what you could do, if you franchise what you're doing. The McDonald's brothers, oh, I don't want to do that. You franchise what you're doing, and then I will then sell you more multi-mixers. In other words, milkshake makers.
yeah,
That's where he saw his business. And then when he started to see what they were doing and they didn't want to do it, he thought, wait a minute, this actually could make a hell of a lot of money, because this is so efficient. When he started to see the layout, when they started to buy multi-mixer machines off him for their existing branch, and they said they wanted 6, and he was like, I didn't quite pick you up on that, because usually typically somebody will order none or 1, and he was
yeah,
like, no, we want 6. And it's like, well, wait a minute, why are you wanting 6? You've only got 1 unit. But this makes us more efficient in all these areas, and we need less people to do that then, and therefore it's quicker to do the customer delivery. Therefore, the service is a lot better, and no one can get a head start on us. That is the lessons you learn from people far more successful than you.
yeah.
They found out what they loved later on. Now, do you think Ray Kroc really loved doing McDonald's in the beginning? Did he? Hell,
Well,
no.
no,
He didn't love it at all, but he began to love it. So why do you think he began to love it? Because the income it generated as a result of what he was doing.
yeah. That's what you were saying in the beginning there about there's a journey to prosperity, and then happiness and things comes as a byproduct once you've got to that place. But the journey to prosperity, obviously, it's not always easy, and it could be a challenge, and it's not something
So
that's going
what?
to be enjoyable all the way through.
So what most people do when they do what they love, or what Gary Vee really means, is try loads and loads of things. In other words, don't leave your job. Maybe keep your job, but try all your side hustles outside of your job and do loads and loads of them, and minimize the risk if you do them. And then eventually you'll maybe find what you love. And then you'll think, okay, can I monetize it in this some shape or form? And maybe I could do that. Now, Scott, my son, came to me and talked about, I've got an opportunity to buy a whole load of lighting equipment, which I could hire out. And it's like, whoa, very industrious, entrepreneurial. I like that idea. But after the conversations about the hustles and what he would probably need to do and the research he'd need to do, I'm not really sure if I've put him off or no. And but I said to you, I've been through all these different things before. I understand where it's going. And if you want to trod that path, then fair enough.
Yeah,
I'll just tell you my personal experience about how it worked for me, and then how you could fit that in, and the one-stop shop. Why people would maybe not come to you just for lights and then have to go to someone else. They just want to go to one person. And then what's your market? Is it quite a niche market to just higher lighting, and all these different things that made a fundamental difference. And the market started to narrow and narrow and narrow to the point you maybe actually trying to sell to 100 people in the whole of Britain. Is it worth that risk? £3,000 to buy that stuff. I can get it cheap. It's like, okay, but why is nobody else buying it for £3,000 then? Oh, but it's worth a lot more. But why is it £3,000 then if it's worth a lot more? So you've got to ask yourself these questions. And it's like, well, so where are you going to store this stuff? Oh, put it in the garage. It's like, well, you need to clear the garage. Tell you what, I've got a van sitting in the garage. If we get that started and we get it cleaned up, we'll go and sell it. And you've got all that side to use. Nobody wants to do the grind, though, do they? They like doing what they love, but they don't want to do the bit.
You've got to do the stuff in the beginning to get there. Yeah.
I just want to do the happy stuff. It's a typical example of the self-employed contractor. It then turns around and says, I tell you what, I just want to swing a hammer.
Yeah.
Okay, but you've still got to do your accounts, you've still got to do your credit control, you've still got to collect your money, you've still got to do your invoicing, you've still got to do your quotation, you've still got to hustle, you've still got to do your marketing and all the rest of it. You still got to deal with the bank to get overdrafts if you need them. So you didn't want to do any of that? No. Well, get a job with someone else.
Get a job that somebody's employing you. Yeah.
And then just do a side hustle. Invest your money. Invest your money. Take some of your proportion of your money and just invest it in something. It would actually make money. For God's sake, not crypto or NFTs or non-fungible tokens. That's just crazy stuff. But yeah, so do what you love, and then it comes down to when we talked about living and all the rest of it. Is living simply and not overextending yourself.
Yeah, because a lot of people probably look at wealthy or rich people and think, oh, you live big, extravagant lives. And I mean, I know you do certain things that bring you joy, Jim, but you don't live an extravagant life.
No, far from it.
By any means, yeah.
Far from it. Nothing extravagant of what I really have. If people had what I had, they would probably live in a hell of a lot more extravagant life than I'm living. But I've got no intention of doing that. I don't want it, for one thing, and I really don't need it. So, but do you know when you get there, knowing you've got access to it, and knowing you can just do it, it's just as important as actually doing it. It's like once you get there.
I was going to ask you, because obviously a lot, and generally you will find people that are wealthy and successful and whatever, they actually live a lot more simpler lives and live a wee bit more frugally and things. Do you think that's because you've got the option to live extravagantly if you really wanted to? Yeah.
I used to love going to work with my dad in between jobs when I was an accountant. I used to work with my dad and used to clean the windows and clean all the floors and stuff like that in shops and offices and things like that. I used to love doing that because it was a no-brainer. It was because I knew I could go back to. I'll go back to accountancy anyway once I get another job. It was just a wee side hustle I liked to enjoy and keep myself busy and going out and doing something like most people would possibly do it. Just like to do something, just like to work. So the simplistic lifestyle is everything. It's a lot of people actually just live beyond their means, broke at a different level. I would say that's what usually causes the fundamental problem in their life, when they actually accumulate nothing and they've spent everything, and they become a consumer. Consumers. I'm a producer. I produce something to sell to someone else, the consumer. And the consumer then consumes it and they pay me the money. So producers work out ways in order to attract the money towards them. Consumers work out ways in order to retract the money from them. In other words, repel the money from them. So they get the money and immediately just spend it on something.
I was just going to say, people fall into that kind of trap and cycle where they just kind of stop themselves from spending money and a lot of the time unnecessarily on things and possessions and just things that they don't need, or over buying too much of some things as well. I've seen a lot of people fall into the trap of doing, and it's like, why do you need all that? And it becomes a bit of a, dare I say, a habit? Well, it will be a habit.
It becomes habitual, and it also becomes habitual because it's an addiction, because it's linked to dopamine. Or some sort of neuroreceptor production in terms of something that will give them a high or a kick or whatever that is. That's the key here. That's fundamentally what happens overall in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it. So I think that's more the point about what they need to know and what they need to do.
Yeah, and I think in the initial stages of anybody's journey, if you've got the mindset where you're not somebody overspends or unnecessarily spends, and have got the approach where you only spend when you need to, you keep an eye on your finances, you don't overspend and live relatively frugally. I mean, we're not telling people to live completely. Then it really does help them without them wasting money on stuff. That attitude really does help you be more successful and build wealth and get to ultimately where you want to be. And that's the most important thing. And that brings us on to the next point we're going to talk about, which is obviously where you want to be. You have to have clear perspective and have life goals as well. You need a clear vision and life goals. And that's number 3 in the characteristics of somebody who's generally happy and prosperous. Yeah. So, I mean, to have clear perspective and life goals, if you sit down and have maybe a long talk with maybe a happy, successful and prosperous person, you'll see that they have a clearer philosophy on life generally. Some take a religious view on life and things, and we see that. And then there's always thinking about the meaning of life and even God and things as well that they believe in. But if you ask them, they could explain their views of life more clearly than maybe most religious people probably could, because they've got such a more clearer perspective on themselves and where they want to be. And they firmly believe in living life by using their innate gifts to the fullest. They share their gifts with like their family and their friends, and how they live their lives with an ultimate goal of being prosperous and having happiness at the end. And when you really think about the meaning of maybe, say, peace and harmony as such, when you really think about the meaning of that and the meaning of life and how you want to live your life, it will probably take you there naturally if you keep that in mind and have that kind of mindset. And people will always keep asking those important questions, and the answer will come in some form of success if you keep asking these questions and keep yourself in that kind of mindset. The most important thing in life, probably for people like that, is finding their own gifts and their own abilities, and then sharing that with the people around them. And then those people around them, this helps not just them, but their immediate group. And then that's like obviously brings us back to the people who you surround yourself with as well. And then if you help yourself and the people around you, then this helps everybody. And then it's its own reward, really, because that could be a really rewarding thing that you're not only helping yourself, you're helping the people close to you and the most important people around you as well. And that could be a really rewarding thing as well. And if you've got that as an ultimate one of your ultimate maybe life goals, and that could give you a real clear perspective of what you're trying to achieve and where you're trying to get. And ultimately, the reward to yourself is obviously being able to help others and things. And we speak a lot about that in the Wealth Creation Show, that it's not only just all about yourself, it's about obviously the people around you, and even like the community around you and things as well, and giving back and having that rewarding feeling. And they're really good life goals to have, and things that you want to achieve. And that could give you really clear perspective on where you want to be and how you want to get there. So yeah, clear perspective and life goals is something that is really important, I think. And yeah, as I say, take a wee sit down or a step back and have a think about that. And it's always important to speak to somebody that's maybe trodden that path before you. Jim was just referencing there to how he was speaking to his son, and maybe his son's wanting to do that with the lighting and things, but it might not be the right thing. But if he wants to go down that route and experience it for himself, that's fine. But it's quite a good move to take the advice of somebody who's probably already trodden the path before you and could give you some life experience that you could learn from rather than making a mistake yourself. So that's just something to think about. But yeah, definitely take a wee think back to what you actually want to achieve in life, and have some clear perspective on how you want to do that. We were doing clear perspective and life goals, Jim, and I was
Yeah,
just
this is quite interesting because when we have clear perspective and life goals,
Mhm.
I actually don't have any. It's
See,
bizarre,
that's
isn't it?
surprising. That's
Yeah,
surprising. So,
it's
so
bizarre.
explain.
It's bizarre. I don't really have any, and it's because I've had loads of clearly defined goals before, and I've reached them all, but I
Mhm.
don't really have any. But I don't feel too concerned that I don't have any because I know they will appear at some point in time, and I'll get. So I have an idea about where I want to be and where I want to go,
Mhm.
and how I want to, and possibly how I want to get there. But at this point in time, I really don't want to define it too clearly because I don't want to deviate myself from a path that might be there. It might be a
Yeah.
better opportunity.
There was one thing that I touched on there, and I thought I referenced to um what you currently do, and I think one of the things that you like to do and feel rewarded, and it's always giving back to the people around you, and whether that's your immediate family or your immediate circle or community around you and things as well, and it is something that you practice, Jim, and do. Um, so I suppose that's a life goal of yours, but maybe not an ultimate one, but it's one of the drivers that give you that clear perspective of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
that yeah,
possibly, yeah.
yeah. So that's one thing I suppose, but yeah, I know what you mean. You don't know what to tie your. It's like pin your color, tie your, to one mast, and that's it really. You want to kind of keep your options open and not have just defined like this is what I'm aiming for and this is where I want to be, because there's a probably broader spectrum of things that you want to come out of your journey and your life, in terms of your goals and things that you want to achieve, not just one certain thing.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I would definitely say so. That is the case. It is not. It is. I'm still. I've got a number. I've got a whole load of options, and therefore I don't. But I used to get really bent out of shape before because you were always conditioned, socially conditioned about the fact that you should have goals in life. You should have a
Yeah.
clear prospect. You should have a vision of where you're going and what you're doing. And a lot of people talk about it on social media quite a lot as well. Obviously, the people on Instagram and TikTok and everything like that, and you see that constantly all the time. So you shouldn't then say to yourself, oh well, I'm not really sure where I'm going, so I'm lost. It's that's not because you this comes back again to having faith in the very fact that the right track is going to
You
appear or
find
the
the
right
right path.
opportunities are going
Yeah.
to appear at the right time. You
Mhm.
just have to be open-minded enough to actually realize them and see them. I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. So it's not about, you can sit down, you can pontificate, you can go over it like I used to do before years and years ago, and you can clearly define where you want to do. But then when you know where you want to go, that's when you start to focus. So you've got this periphery vision overall, you can see either side now, and then you come to foveal vision, which is actually tunnel. And
Mhm.
that's when you start to focus, when you know exactly what you're going to do.
When you find something and then think, oh, and then
Well,
start to home
aye.
in on that.
I
Yeah.
mean, do you honestly think Elon Musk or people like that thought, I'm going to start an electric car company? At some point in time,
It's
they
something
would have
that's
been
yeah.
scratching
Yeah.
in the dirt, thinking to themselves, what am I going to do after PayPal? And it's
Mhm.
like, I mean, I might get into the space race and I might get into all this and all that, but they never had a clear, defined goal exactly at that point in time. They just thought, is there opportunities there? And then when they had that clear, defined goal, they went, right, let's go for it. Let's get a clear perspective on our life, and let's get some goals in place about what we want to try and achieve. That's what you see as the difference. Whereas most people interpret this straight away as I've got to have a goal and I've got to have a purpose and I've got to have a reason. And it's like, no, don't beat yourself up too hard about that.
Yeah.
I've kind of worked that out over life, over the time that I've been here. I've kind of worked
Yeah.
that
And
out,
that's the thing
all
about
the trial and
learning.
error.
Yeah. And that's the thing about learning for people that have trodden that path before you, and learning from them rather than, do you know, because somebody listening to this you might give some the light bulb moment today, like, oh, so I don't really need to have a goal or something defining me right now. I could just, it'll come to me as long as I stay focused
Mhm.
on progressing and things as well.
Well,
So,
for me, it's always property.
yeah.
But then I look for opportunities out of that where it could possibly be complementary to what I'm doing. So it's an additional add-on to what I'm doing overall. The estate agency business, the letting agency business, the property investment business, property training business, the sourcing business, all these different things. The maintenance business that was started as well. at
Yeah.
one point in time. All these different things have a relationship with each other, and they're beneficial. And it's kind of where I'm focused on where I want to be. Because if there's one thing everybody needs, it's a roof over their head.
Yeah. And that's never going to change.
So if you hold all the cards and you have what we call a big audience, then why would you not just take the advantage of that?
Yeah.
It all comes back to lists, people, and contacts. This is why data is probably the most important thing you'll ever have. It's more valuable than oil and gold, and it's the most precious thing in the world because it opens the doors for everything. And it gives you lead generation for everything that you're doing.
Yeah, if you've got a good database and you're under a good, a good healthy database with a lot of people in it, there's a lot you could do with that. And that brings us on really to the next point and the next characteristic, and it's loving money and business as well, Jim. And a lot of happy or prosperous people generally enjoy dealing with money and the business side of things. They find it interesting. They find it interesting things and maybe just the ordinary. Do you know, they look outside that box and they always have a lot of fresh ideas. And
I've never loved money. I've never loved money. I'm going against the grain today.
It's a byproduct of doing.
I've never loved money. It's a byproduct of keeping a scorecard of what you're doing. And anybody that lives for the love of money is in serious trouble, morally, I would say, because it's the love of money. It will make them do things that they shouldn't be doing. It possibly borders on the line of illegality, because it's just the love of money. So it's be careful of that. But a lot of people love doing what they do when they find out what it is they should be doing, and learning to monetize that is probably the most important thing. But you know, I've never really been, and a lot of people have actually said in the past, "Oh, you're obsessed with money." It's not. No, I'm obsessed with doing something really well and getting paid as a natural result of that. But I tell you what, money's right up there with oxygen. Try going into a shop and buying something and actually saying, "I don't want to pay for it." Try going in to get a new car and saying, "I tell you what, I just want to run about in it, but I'm not really want to pay for it. And if I feel I didn't like it, I'll just hand it back, and that'll be the end of it, and you'll not be due you anything." Try asking anybody to do anything for you, any job, in this world, any job. I mean, you can get your friends in that, you can take advantage of it, but only for so long, and then they have to earn money to live, don't they? Because money is the exchange of currency, or the currency in order to exchange for goods and services, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. Wealthy people are not obsessed with the money aspect. They're probably obsessed with business more than anything, and growing a business and seeing it. It's kind of like having a baby, if it makes sense. And I always refer to my business as my baby, and always thought about it, you feed the baby first, especially for anybody that starts off in business or anybody that's in business now. The baby is always the first thing you feed, because the baby is will look after you. It's just like the golden goose. Why would you then kill the golden goose? It lays all the eggs. You would obviously look after the goose. It's like when you're going climbing and you're up on these places and all the Sherpas and stuff like that. Sometimes they've got the mules and the horses and the cattle that will take all your baggage, and carry it all. And you see some of them whipping them all the time and no treating them very well. And I'm kind of like, are you nuts? That's your living. I would be looking after the animals if it's the be all and end all. I remember my family. I'd have a bed at night for it, and I'd be making sure it had the best of everything, because that animal will produce an absolute fortune for you over time. But instead, they treat them like dirt. So that's the key there, I would say, is the most important thing.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, Jim, for you, I mean, like you say, it's not money. I think you get quite excited about numbers and how everything falls into place and how everything works, and that's a big part of the business. And obviously having that feeling and watching a business grow. And like you say, ultimately, money, if you're running a good, successful business, will come as a byproduct anyway.
I think more people get a kick out of being successful than actually having the money.
Yeah.
Or being seen to be successful. This goes back to the pretendies. The people that just pretend that they're successful, the charlatans, or the Bonnie Prince Charlies, stuff like that. It's like, I'm playing the part. Look at me, everybody. Everybody buy into what I'm doing. But that's the sort of thing that's the sort of thing a lot of people actually repel, that are actually truly business leaders and truly wealth creators. They're not keen on it at all. They don't make their money from getting people to part with their money. They make money from providing a fantastic service or a fantastic product which people want to buy. That's the most important thing. So that's how they make their money. Whereas other people use techniques, I would say, and I'm thinking about property trainers, for example, that actually get people to part with their money on,
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors. That's probably the key. That then brings you, the balanced state of mind, as you talked about. The fifth one out of this is having a balanced state of mind. Well, there's something I've not got, and it's certainly not a balanced state of mind, because my mind isn't balanced at all. It's clearly just one way. I am completely obsessed with doing business. I'm completely obsessed with making it happen. I'm completely obsessed with delivering the first class service to my customer. I just have a natural obsession for it, to the point that, when I was finished the triathlon, I got in my car straight away and I flew across to the East Nuke to see the 1324, 1347, I think it was, the Shannon class lifeboat, the new one coming into the East Nuke Harbour at the RNLI Answer Dock.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Because for me, I thought you'll never ever see things like that again. And it's a community I feel part of now because I've been involved in so many people's lives. So I want to be there. I want to be part of that community. And that then leads me to doing business with all these people as a natural result, because I want the best for them.
Yeah.
I want the best for them, and the byproduct for me is I get paid as a natural result. But incidentally, I turned round to one of the guys there. It was it had been there. We were having a wee chat, and he went, "Oh God, you're going to be making millions so far, Jim, out of selling all the houses here." And I went, "In fact, I actually don't make millions out of selling all the houses here. But I tell you what, if I sold all the houses here, and no other agent sold any houses here, I'd be able to give £40,000 a year back to the local community just by naturally just selling all the houses here. I'm not actually making any more than anybody else is making, but I'm giving it a lot of it back. So I'd be able to give 40,000 every single year back to charities and causes." Now, where do you think my mind's at that point in time? I just think about how much I can give back, not how much I can make. So if I sold all the houses, I'd be able to give that back, 40 grand a year, just to the East Nuke. Imagine if I did that in Glenrothes. Imagine if I did that in Cooper. Imagine if I did that in St Andrews. That'd be hundreds of thousands a year we would be giving back to local communities and local organisations and local charities in Fife in order to help everybody. This swim programme, it was going to cost me to get every child be able to swim by the time they go to high school, was £200,000 to run every single year. I could be running that swim programme. I know the council's put it in place again now, which is great, but I could be contributing £200,000 a year to local communities and charities. That's money they're not getting already, because no one else is giving them it. They're putting it in their pocket and they're driving their flash cars. So
that's very true.
So the thing about me is, a completely different state of mind.
I think it's all about the balanced, like you say, state of mind and emotions and things.
It is, but most people like me haven't got balanced state emotions and mind, as some people have been on the wrong end of that receiving.
I think when it comes to emotions, especially if you're running a business and things, it's quite easy to become a wee bit overwhelmed and maybe sometimes let the small things kind of get to you, and it's quite hard to not let that happen, especially when you're dealing with a lot of people every day. And I know from personal experience, you really have to just shake off the small things, because they can sometimes really get hold of you, and it's like, why am I letting this bother me so much? And it can be quite detrimental to your business.
Not getting too caught up in the impulse buy.
Yes.
There's the balanced emotions. When I talk about balanced emotions, I talk about that as well. But the other one as well is not getting too much caught up in the impulse buy. I still see it now where people look at cars and they think, "Oh, I really need that Aston Martin. I really need that Ferrari to validate my life." And it's like, really? You know what? You usually find once you get there, you don't want it anymore. If you think about it.
The novelty wears off very quickly.
I was speaking to an up and coming, he's been around for years yesterday, and I was talking about him, and his goal was really to have his dream house in East Nuke. And I thought, you know, I could make that happen for you actually. So you probably need to talk to me about that. But you know, when I walked away from that, I thought to myself, do you know my goal was to buy a castle? And then when I was able to buy a castle
I
and
remember you
had
telling me that, yeah.
the opportunity to buy a castle, I thought to myself, nah, I didn't want a castle now. So
Mhm.
I don't see the need of it anymore. I just, why did I really want it? I probably wanted it to validate to everybody else that I've got a castle.
But as you went through your journey, your perspective changed about what you know what you were actually ultimately wanting out of what you were doing. And I think a lot of people are like that. I mean, things will change, and the way you look at things and what you
I
maybe
think a
expect.
lot. I think 95% of the population, Richard, aren't like that at all. I think they just go and buy them and say to hell with it. And usually the mantra runs behind that is, I could be dead tomorrow.
Well, that's then again bringing you back. You need to realise that not everybody's the same. Because as you used to hear that story there, and I mean, obviously, I'm not a castle, but there's things that I've thought about in the past. I'm like, I really like that. I really like that. One day I'll get that. I never think, well, I've never got it, and I thought I didn't want that. And why did I ever really want that? What do I need that for?
Because
So
it's the feeling it gives you.
your
It's the
perspective
feeling
changes.
it gives you when you buy it. This is the emotion thing. This is,
Mhm.
don't get caught up in the emotional side of this. Because it will take hold of you and it will start to take control of what you're doing and your habits.
Yeah.
This is why you get on when we see people on the telly and you go, they've got loads and they just keep buying stuff. They just
Mhm.
keep buying new clothes, putting it in the cupboard, and never ever wearing it. And the person goes through their cupboard and went, "Oh my God, what is this? Oh, it's a Versace dress." And it's
Because it's
like,
hard
what
to
does
go
that
in.
cost? Oh, it was £4,000. It's like, sorry, what? £4,000 for a dress and you've never worn it, and it's sat in your closet. That's the sort of thing that you've got to be careful of. So
Yeah,
understanding where you are and having an emotional balance is key here. Acting
definitely.
decisively is the other one as well. When we talk
Yeah.
about that, decisively, we're all born with ability to do what we need to do. We're all, you know, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes.
Yeah.
Most people are, majority of people. So what makes the fundamental difference? I was listening to a podcast this morning, actually, by a very well respected person, and he was talking about the thing you've got to master the most is in between here, in between your ears,
Mhm.
is your brain, and 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 being able to master that and taking decisions and actually making sure they are the right decisions at that time. By the way, you could look it back in hindsight and think it was the wrong decision. That's probably key to being successful at what you're doing and having a happiness and understanding. If it didn't turn out to be the right decision, then you made the decision at that time based on the facts you had,
Mhm.
and lo and behold, just let it go. Why do you think Tony Blair and that, and Boris Johnson, and
But you're the
you know,
first thing in
and why do
mind,
you
yeah.
think? How do you think they live with themselves? Because we all think to ourselves, how could you live with yourself about the, you know, invading Iraq for weapons of mass destruction would never exist in the first place, and then, you know, about saying the NHS is going to have 300 million every single week towards the NHS and stuff like that on the side of a bus. How could you live with that and actually just walk away and feel okay about that? Because that's how they operate. They,
Mhm.
at the time, based on the facts that they had, or based on the person that's told them. Remember, they've not worked that out. They've been told by a think tank somewhere. Their
Yeah.
team have said to him, "It's like you could save 300 million by leaving, you know, by leaving the European Union." And he goes, "Yeah, okay, let's get that on the side of a bus. Let's run with that. All right, but it's going to cost you 500 million to do it every single week." Well, sorry, but that's a 200 million
Deficit,
net
yeah.
loss every
Yeah.
single week. But for leaving, it's like, but we didn't want to kin about that. Our objective here is to leave. So let's just put 300 million on the side of a battle bus. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And that's how they live with themselves. But they acted decisively. They got on with it. They never procrastinated. They never did anything. They just took they weren't a slave to their thoughts in that scenario. They
Mhm.
just took it and they went and did it and they got on with it and they
With the
lived with the
facts that they were
consequences.
provided at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you acted decisively and then not acted decisively? What do you think is the best scenario, the best circumstances to do? Act decisively or maybe think about it for a while?
Act decisively. I've learnt that the hard way.
Yeah, we all have. Trust me. Me more
Yeah.
than others.
Yeah. But it's even like when you're looking at things like, say, when you're looking at quotes for works to be carried out and things, and it's like, as long as you've got all the facts, you can make the decision very quickly about what needs to be done. But if you don't have all the facts, that's when it's like, right, okay, I need to wait to get this and this, and but if you've got all the facts, it's quite easy to act quite decisively as long as you've got them all, and it all adds up and makes sense to you at the time, and you make that decision. Just like you say, is obviously with the NHS kind of decision and things. That's what they were provided with.
Here's a key person that acts decisively. Screw it, let's do it. Richard Branson.
Mm-hmm.
Screw it, let's do it. Even though his team are telling him, his management team are going, no, Richard, no, this one. No, Richard. His accountants are going, no, you'll bleed us dry. It's like we're gonna have no money left, Richard. We're gonna run out of cash. And he's going, screw it, let's do it. Let's see how we get on. Because he's worked at the downside straight away in his head and thinks, yeah, I could take that risk. Let's go for it. And then some of it pays off, some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
Virgin Cola, Virgin Cosmetics, I don't think are around anymore. Virgin this and Virgin that, all these different things that aren't there. The Virgin Lottery, it never existed. It never got off the ground, but he spent a fortune in trying to get off the ground or trying to get the licenses to run the lottery as the Virgin Lottery. All these different things, they screw it, let's do it, let's go for it. But there's other things that paid off very well.
Virgin Media and Virgin Atlantic and
all these different things, it paid off as a natural result. Virgin Voyages, Virgin Hotels, the Virgin Mobile, Virgin Broadband. All these different things paid off, and they paid off hugely.
Virgin Money.
Yes, and he's just selling it out there now. That somebody else is buying it. Virgin Money is getting bought out, but they're paying billions for it as a result of that. So you could see how that works. So he got a lot more successes than he got failures, but he acted decisively every single time.
Yeah, so that's a really important lesson, I think, to be quite decisive in your decision-making process. Make sure you have the facts and things as well. But I mean, obviously, Richard Branson's in a different situation where he's allowed to, he's got that ability to take risk because obviously he is already
He was always like that, Richard, from the very beginning. He always took risks. When he started Student Magazine, he was like that as well. Student Magazine was always taking a bit of risk about putting, never mind the buzzcocks, the bollocks or whatever it is. Here's the buzzcocks. And that was deemed to be offensive, putting that in a window, and therefore he actually got arrested for it, and he was told to take it down and taken to court and all the rest of it. But he still continued to do it because he was like, I'm not bothered. And he's always taking risks. He's taking huge risks in terms of we should legalize cannabis, we should decriminalize all drugs, and in order because this will have a great effect. So you can see all that. You can see how he takes his stand and he pins his colours to the mast. People respect him for it, and some people don't respect him for it, but that's entirely their opinion. He can only do what he can do, but he does act decisively. But I tell you what he does do, it comes on the seventh one, he loves what he does. Loves his work or his business. He loves what he does every single time. And this is what I talk about all the time, is learn to love the grind. If you love the grind, you love what you do, nothing could stop you doing that at all, ever.
And if you love what you do and you really put your all into it, it will come through in whatever you're doing, whether that's sales or whether it's you run a restaurant, or look at the customer service Virgin has and the reputation they have because the passion's there right for the top for obviously Richard Branson. And it'll be the same if you're running a restaurant or a food establishment and you really love what you do, it'll come through in the food, it'll come through in the way it's served. Do you know the whole experience in a restaurant? If somebody really loves what they do, that'll come through in that. And it's likewise if you're doing sales, if you're really passionate about what you do and you actually want to help the person, do you know, Jim, if you're going out to meet somebody and you really want to help them on their journey and get their property sold, get the best result, and do you know, it comes through. It comes through in your video, it comes through in what you do in terms of your marketing strategy, all of that, because you actually have a passion and you love what you're doing on a daily basis.
It's quite interesting because I talked to somebody recently who's a well-known singer. And I was talking to them about it, and they said, well, I've probably got 2 or 3 years left in this. I never signed a record contract because I didn't want them taking 40% of my money, because that's what they'll take, and I'll be locked into them. But he says, I've only got 2 or 3 years left I'd want to do. I'm like, really? I thought you would love what you do. He's like, no, this isn't where my money is. My money's in other things that I've got going over here. He says, but I just like doing this now, and I really want to do it to get it over with because it's something I really wanted to do. It was one of the goals I wanted to achieve, and I was quite surprised when they said, I'm not going to do another 2 or 3 years in this, and then I'll concentrate on what I'm doing now, my side hustles and that I'm doing it over here. and then I'll put more effort into that. And I'm like, I was really surprised. I always thought it was like this. It's like, if you love what you do, you'll do it forever, and you don't care what it is you're getting paid. You'll just keep doing it because you love it. Clearly, this person maybe likes it, but I don't think they genuinely love it. I think it's just I've done that now. Let's do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a point where you'll get to that summit, and you probably won't have another mountain to climb, and you just go, yeah, I've done that. Right, let's move on. Let's do something
different. Yeah.
That's why your footballers retire and they end up running a McDonald's franchise.
Or being a TV presenter, or or whatever.
Yeah, and they end up doing something else completely different. They do something completely different. They tee themselves up to do something completely different, and they're no bothered because they realise that there's only a finite life in what they're doing, and they'll not go on forever unless you're some big massive superstar, and then you'll get into television. I mean, how many footballers retire, and how many people actually appear on television? Very few.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing. It goes on about learning to love what you do and love your business as well, and having purpose in what you're doing overall, and then moving on to do something else. There's lots of things that everybody could do out there, and it's a shame. And I always say, if you can, you must. So whatever it is you're really good at, you must do it. If that's the case, you should not hold yourself back because you're denying your true gift in life, or your true gifts itself in life, from other people. You're denying them, but what you're really good at, what you're really passionate about, and you should embrace that and run with it. I would say, but not to the detriment of let's throw everything to the wind. And then just like, but you've just left your job and you've got no other income. It's like, oh, to hell with that. I'll do something else. It's like, really? It's like, no, I would never advise anybody to do that. Side hustle, build it up like that. Prove a track record, and then go and do it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, this is where the 8th one. This is it. You will live and die by the person that you partner up with. Whether it's your business partner, whether it's your partner in life, whether it's both, you will live and die by their sword. I'll tell you, because they will either build you up or tear you down.
Yeah.
And your life partner is the most important thing you could probably ever have, because you've got to live with them forever, and they're the ones that make that decision. This is an interesting one when I saw on Rocky. Now, if you watch the film Rocky and you watch Apollo Creed, and it's like she's going, why do you need to fight again? Why do you need to fight again? When it was coming up to Ivan the Terrible, or whatever his name was, Dolph Lundgren, and the third one. I think it was the third one or the fourth one. Anyway, so when they were in that one, third one, I think it was, possibly. So when they're in that one, he thought he had to come back, and the same Rocky did the same where he's with his partner. He was like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to get back in the ring. I have to prove to myself. I cannot live with myself for the rest of my life knowing that I haven't done this, and I haven't been the person I really should be. And that is the problem in most people's relationships. One or the other person holds the other person back from what their true calling is, or their true dream is, and you're the dream killer, or the other person's a dream killer. I would never want to be that person.
No.
But a lot of relationships are like that, and a lot of businesses are like that as well. They'll not let other people, thrive and go to the elevation that they want to, because I don't know whether it's jealousy, whether it's I don't want you, I don't want you to do that because of the risk. It's the message they get, how they've grown up, how their environment's like. It's like they've seen that happen before, and maybe the people that they knew have lost everything as a result, and therefore their fear. So it's either jealousy or it's fear. It usually drives these decisions. So when that person tears you down, it's not because of you, it's because of their fear. That's usually why that happens. And that could be, and that's why it's important to have that loving partnership, or that happy home, but not to the expense of you're lying on your deathbed and thinking back to yourself and thinking, I wish I'd done that. That's probably the worst thing you'll ever live with, if that's the case. And in order to suck that up and actually just keep that in over your whole life is like, wow, that, and push that down, that's going to be pretty difficult. That'll probably shorten your life, to be honest.
Yeah, when you repress things like that. And I think it's important as well, like in any partnership, the two people are always going to be really different and probably have different, maybe they have different goals or different things that they want to do. And if you're working towards the same objective but still have different interests, you need to really build each other up and let each other do what they do best as well as working for a common goal.
Yeah.
So it's all about balance and having that right setup when you're in a partnership. I mean, you've got and your home life as well needs to be. You know, if it's dysfunctional, then you've got a
home life and the relationship. It's when you get together when you're early on in your life, you usually get a bit of jealousy between each other. How come you get out and I don't get out? How come I've got to stay home and look after the kids, and then you get out to work? It's like, but you play to the part that you should play to, and you have to find the partner that will be able to do that and be able to play that role. At the end of the day, whether you like it or no, your relationship is a business. And I know for some people it's like you can't call it a business, and it's like that's a bit dramatic or a bit extreme.
Really.
But you're in a partnership with each other for the rest of your life, for the rest of your life, not just a job. Not I could give my notice and I could leave. It's like, no, you've picked this person to have children with, potentially, to live a life with, to bring new life into the world. And it's like, or bring new life in some shape or form, or whether it's a dog or a cat or adopt or whatever it is. You're responsible, and this is the person you've chosen to be responsible with. So you better pick properly. You better pick the right person. And sometimes you've got to kiss a lot of princes to get, a lot of frogs to get a prince. That's, for some people, that's how it works, and it works both ways. But once you find that person, you know where you work. I mean, it's taken a lot of years for Elaine and I to understand this relationship. I go out and I do all the business and I make sure it works. Elaine works in the background, making sure it all happens, and make sure everything falls. God, when Elaine went on holiday for last week, it was like, oh my God, the world just fell apart. My diet went out, my running went out, my whole lifestyle went out. It's like
just the run of the house.
So you can see Elaine, and Elaine's like cleans, cooks, irons, does all the rest of it, and does everything like that. And most people out there will be going, I wouldn't be chained to a sink. And it's like, if your partner has the capability of becoming a multi-millionaire and you having your freedom and anything you want in the world for the rest of your life, and your kids being looked after, and the wider community being looked after, and you were guaranteed that, is that no a part you would play? And I was happy to play that. When Elaine worked at Diageo and I was a student, I was obviously 22 hours a week as a student, but I studied at home, and then I made sure the house was cleaned, I made sure everything else was cleaned, I made sure the cats were looked after, I made sure everything was done, I made sure the ironing was done as well, and I made sure the tea was cooked before Elaine coming in the door. And it's like,
at that time she was the main breadwinner as such, and working long hours, and
and I've seen it lately for some relationships. It's like, that's women's work.
No.
Sorry, it's like, we're in the dark ages here.
Yeah, I think we've moved forward to fulfill that, hopefully, for the most part.
It's anybody's work. It's capable to do it because that's their function at this point in time. And you play to your audience, and you play to the part that you should do at that point in time. This is the old classic example, and we'll be finished off in a minute.
Yeah.
The army and the forces actually have an unwritten rule. Whether it's written or unwritten, I don't know. It's the unwritten rule about, in certain battle situations, it is okay for someone to mutiny against the current leader, because that is the person that should be in charge for that at that appropriate time, because they've got the skill set for that situation in battle. So it's okay for somebody to take over and actually mutiny against the person, technically in charge at that point in time. They see that as an option. And it's the same sort of principle on a weaker scale in terms of relationships and how people interact with each other. Sometimes it's better for someone else to take the lead. And I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, because they've got a better skill set or whatever to deal with a certain situation than the other. Yeah.
No, stand aside. You know, I know you're an expert at this, but stand aside. I just want to have a go.
I'll try and deal with it.
No, you're all right. On you go. On you go. You're the expert at it. You know what you're doing. It's like I'll start and I'll hold you. You can sit on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I'll help you reach that goal. And that's why I always used to say to people, a lot of companies I went to before says, "Oh, you're too overqualified." Well, I didn't think it'll work out because you'll find it really difficult to work with other people in a sort of subordinate situation. And I was like, "Hey, I play a mean second fiddle every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time I'll play second fiddle if I need to." And it's the object, it's the objective at the end we should be aiming for, not the self-actualization and the fact that it'll make me feel better.
Yeah, no, that's a good point and a good way to bring that to an end, Jim, because a lot of people might find it do find it difficult to step aside and let somebody else take the reins, even though they're better suited or qualified or even got that skill set.
Yeah, because it comes down to fear.
Yeah,
it's fear. You're going to take my job. That's what happens. It's like, hey, have my job. I'll go and work somewhere else then if that's the case. That's how I always looked at it. I'm not a trained monkey. If a trained monkey could do what I'm doing at this point in time, I am no longer needed in this company. I'm off to do something else, more productive for my life. Because a trained monkey could do it. That's how I've always worked.
Yeah. But yeah, a great partnership and obviously a good home life is the perfect basis for anybody on their journey. So that was a good way to finish up today.
So health, prosperity, happiness, prosperity. Next week, part 3. What we're talking
about? Part 3 next week is.
Put you on the spot.
Put you on the spot again.
Prepared.
It's the. I know it's the 8. It's the 8 different parts of happiness and prosperity, and we're going to break it down a lot more. So I don't have it in front of me, sorry, I can't remember the exact title, but it's broken into 8 sections.
Okay, good stuff. All right, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, that's great, Jim. Thanks for all your insights today. Thanks to the comments and people just jumping in there. Angela, Ian, thanks for joining in today, and we'll see you next Monday at 12:30 as usual. Leave it there.
Bye-bye for now.